From the worldwide headquarters of More Sports and Les Levine, it's a very, very cold Tuesday evening. Good evening, everyone. Welcome once again to More Sports and Les Levine exclusively on cleveland.com. Tonight is Tuesday. That must mean it's either Belgium or it's Bud Shaw. Did you ever see that movie?
I did not see it.
I don't remember. I don't remember anything about it except the title.
Yeah.
If it's Tuesday, it must be Belgium.
I'll tell you this.
Yeah.
It is cold. It's very cold.
How cold is it?
But it's not nearly as cold as Kyrie Irving is if these reports, these latest reports.
Leon McDuff.
So Rick Bucher,
all right,
who's a well-respected NBA guy, says that people close to the Celtics say Kyrie has genuine interest in rejoining LeBron James in L.A.
Not in Cleveland.
Not in Cleveland. If that's true, I don't know if there's is there a enemies list in Cleveland of former players and opponents?
No. Well, opponents, I think you'll always get some votes for
John
Elway.
Yeah, Elway, Jordan, Draymond Green, Steph Curry. I think Kyrie makes the list if this is true.
How can this possibly be true?
Which part? Him making the list?
No. He makes the list automatically. He makes it even now, even if he didn't suggest that he'd like to. How does that happen?
Why was he so willing to share the fact that he called LeBron, other than the fact that
you mean just to get it out there?
That he likes the idea of patting himself on the back for being a big man who recognized his flaws as a young player, and that's why he called LeBron to say, now I know what you went through with me because now I'm dealing with these young guys.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of people who thought that there was an agenda there beyond that.
Right.
And that was that, oh, you know what, LeBron? I'd be a different guy if you want me back.
Yeah. Don't you think he also should have written a letter to Mayor Frank Jackson apologizing?
Yeah, he should have written a letter to a lot of people apologizing. But I just wouldn't, I mean, really, isn't that the straw for people? They're not going to.
Yeah, you'd wonder why.
And he's already like, you want it out of here? Like, you want it out of here.
Let's establish a few things. Number one, we must assume he's pretty bright because he went to Duke.
Okay. He wasn't there very long.
Right.
All right.
We must assume that he's not very bright because he thinks the earth is flat.
Yes, and he's back.
So it's a toss-up.
It could be a toss-up, but I'm telling you, this would be one that he would have a hard time ever coming back into Cleveland ever again.
You mean he'll be injured that night?
Well, I'm just saying, people aren't going to. People are already. Right now, they say, I can't believe this guy wanted out of here. Now he's acting like he's learned some lessons from that.
Right.
He probably cost the Cavs at least maybe another title. I don't want to say at least, but it maybe another title.
You don't know.
If he'd been here, at least a really good chance at one. And then for him but everybody says, well, he hit the big shot. So we're willing to, we're never going to forget that. He hit the shot that won the championship. But I'm just saying, if he suddenly shows up like willing to play with LeBron after, LeBron's the reason he wanted out of here. That's what he said.
We'll all assume that, right? There's nobody else he was referring to.
That's what he said, but that's our understanding of it.
All right, so you mentioned, is there an enemies list? So let's forget this for a minute. Is there an enemies list, and who would join it? And I threw out John Elway as public enemy number one, probably with the fans.
Joakim Noah is on it.
Could be.
Yeah, for things that he has
said about
our crimes against Cleveland, things he has said about Cleveland.
Okay, that's the extent of it.
Well, Jordan's on there.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, Jordan never gets off there, does he?
Kyle Schwarber.
Joe Buck. I mean, it could be a long list with a lot of petty reasons to put people on it, but Kyrie would vault near the top of it.
Speaking of Joe Buck, and when I tell you what I'm going to tell you, you'll say, what does that have to do with Joe Buck? But it jogged my memory. Or it will jog my memory when I tell you if I remember or not. Browns have been back almost 20 years, correct?
Yes.
Do you think that Jim Nantz has called a game from Cleveland in those 20 years? Now, CBS has been the AFL or the AFC voice, right? But I don't think Cleveland's ever been in a game big enough to have Jim Nantz even in October.
Yeah, I can't think of what it would be unless, I mean, they didn't do the Browns' first game back or anything, did they?
No, that could have been Monday Night Football.
That 43-0 loss?
Could have been Monday night.
Yeah, I don't think he would have.
Huh. I know.
So what does that have to do with Joe Buck?
I knew that. I know that Well, I'm wondering if Al Michaels, I know I saw him and talked to him one time when he was here, so I don't know if there was an NBC game or if he was still
Or
with
maybe a
ABC.
World Series game. Would Al Michaels?
No, it was a football game.
Okay.
Football game. I can't tell you what we talked about.
Must be. Did he say he owed everything to you?
No, we share a
Everything
birthday, though. We do share a birthday. I told him one of his, I admire him greatly as an announcer, as a broadcaster, and I thought his appearance on the Howard Stern show when, during the O.J., just after the O.J. Simpson case.
Which was 94? Does that sound right?
I think it was 94.
94?
Yeah.
That's
Anyway,
what you talked about with him,
I'll
OJ?
tell you off the,
All right.
Yeah, I can't tell you.
All right.
216. Wait a minute. They're telling me we may have a new phone number tonight.
What?
No. Oh, we restore this one? Because of the cold, we had a problem.
Okay.
And we're okay. 216-575-0403 is the number to call. So don't you think that if Kyrie would join LeBron, don't you think that's the OIC in us, the only in Cleveland in us? I mean, that goes almost to the top of OIC.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, if he ends up joining LeBron with Anthony Davis, that goes right to the top of that list.
I would think.
And maybe the Browns will be good enough that everybody will have something else to distract them, but that would be pretty high on the list.
News on Anthony Davis also.
Yeah. So, Anthony Davis has let it be known that he won't re-sign with the Pelicans. The NBA has put in a rule that you cannot publicly demand a trade.
Correct.
Bad for business. I mean, let's face it, it's bad for business.
Yeah, but we've heard guys demand trades before.
I don't know if we have or if it leaked somehow.
Okay,
in other words,
leaked.
I think Kyrie Irving went to Dan Gilbert and said, I want out of here, Gilbert and Griffith.
Okay.
That wasn't considered a public demand
That's
of a
true.
trade. He
That's
didn't.
true. That was
but
behind the scenes
But
thing.
these guys, I think, have let it be known, Rich Paul, more publicly, that he wants to trade. So anyway, they fined him $50,000 today. Wow. Now, that sounds like a lot of money, doesn't it?
It really does. What does that compare to, Bud?
For you or I? Well, the interesting thing about that is Darren Ravel, who does sports business stuff, is on Twitter, and he points out that at Anthony Davis's current salary, every 8 minutes he's on the court, he makes $51,000. So this cost Anthony Davis 8 minutes of almost
two-thirds of 1 quarter. Unbelievable. 216-575-0403 is the number to call. It's interesting. You hear those numbers float out there, and kids hear the numbers and everything. And a friend of mine was telling me, and a friend of mine does very well for a living, but when his kid found out what the guy made, the kid was making fun of the father because he wasn't making NBA money.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow. NBA money is pretty spectacular. And I think it's rubbed people the wrong way that these guys now have the power to...
Yeah, they're running...
All it takes is... Look what happened with Kyrie. And you were one of the people that said, don't trade him. Just because he says he wants to be traded, don't trade him. And I think you'll see with Davis that they're probably not going to make a deal for him right now. Before the trade deadline, which is coming up like February 6th.
And if they didn't trade Kyrie, he'd just be recovering from that knee surgery.
Yeah, I know. That's what I mean. Once a superstar decides he doesn't want to be there anymore, teams are really put in a bad spot.
Let's check out MSNLL headlines for the day, brought to you by Northfield Park, your home for live and simulcast racing. Not much going on until Bud came in and gave us all this information. Cavaliers look for 2 straight. Do you think they'll get it? They take on Washington tonight at the Q. Ohio State visits Michigan. Normally that's a big deal. This is basketball, though. Isn't it amazing that no rivalry that way? Pitchers and catchers still report on February 12th. Some probably, if they live in the north, although there aren't too many. If they do, they're probably trying to head down there right about now.
If they can get the equipment truck started, I think Thursday is the day that they're heading down. So
excellent, excellent. All right, time for opening comments. So let's open it up with Bud Shaw.
Well, I want to direct your attention to a date.
Okay.
January 27th, 2000.
Right.
That's the day that the New England Patriots hired Bill Belichick. Do you remember what Art Modell told Bob Kraft? He told him he was making the biggest mistake of his life in hiring Belichick. How'd that turn out? 19 years and 2 days ago, other Not that anybody's counting, other than all the other AFC teams who are looking for Belichick to retire and finally clear the path.
Who do they want to retire, Belichick or Brady?
Let's talk about that. It's a great question. During that time, the Browns have employed 10 head coaches, if you count Terry Robisky and Greg Williams, which I choose to do. Buffalo and Miami have also had 10, and the Jets have had 7. So that gives you an indication of how dominant the Patriots have been in that AFC East. To the old question of whether it's Belichick or Tom Brady who's responsible for this domination, we may never know. Even if Brady outlasts Belichick, at this stage of his career, I think his age will sort of muddle that discussion. But Sunday, the Patriots take the field in the Super Bowl. Belichick's 9th, by the way. Do you think he might have got into one if he'd stayed here? They are the unpopular favorite. Most of the people I talk to want to see them lose. Until then, we should take time to applaud what they've done. Beyond, Spygate and Deflategate. You with me in applauding them? No? I didn't think so. I don't think people like them. I think they want to see them lose. And I think part of that whole thing last week about replay and all that stuff was all about...
You said that it's all about Brady and Belichick.
Because had it gone the other way and Mahomes had gotten the ball first and won, in my mind, people would be like, you know what, that overtime rule's not bad.
I'm going to disagree, though, on the last thing you said, where most people hate them and want them to lose. I've hated them as much as anybody has hated them. But I have this deeper respect for them than I had before.
I do, too.
And not that I haven't respected them all the way, but for some reason right now, what they've done this year, although they don't get enough non-credit, if that's a word, for winning the East all the time, as you suggest, because the East has been horrible for those same 20 years.
Yeah.
I mean...
But usually because those teams are getting beat twice by the Patriots every year.
What comes first, the beating or the beater or the beatee? On that? I
think we're going to find out whether it's Brady or Belichick in some sense, because I think Belichick will retire before Brady does.
That is interesting.
Yeah. I mean, Belichick's 66. You just wonder, how many more times does he want to do this? Whereas Brady, I think Brady wants to play till he's 45.
Wouldn't you think Belichick, as we know him, would want to do this forever?
I don't know. Unless he wants to go run a team as a
that I don't see.
Team president, GM, or whatever.
Looking at film all the time? Excuse me, Mr. President, let's go in and look at film. That's Bud Shaw of WKYC.com. I'm Les Levine, the self-proclaimed voice of truth and reason in Cleveland sports. Well, for the last 5 or 6 days on the show, the third item on our headlines has been Pitchers and Catchers Report on February 12th. Part of that is because there's not much else going on, but the other part is to remind us that the Cleveland Indians have a better chance to win in that division than either the Cavaliers or the Cleveland Browns. So we're looking for good things. The thing that bothers me is the fact that they don't seem to care. They don't seem to be doing anything. They haven't gone this. They've made changes in the last several years, but they didn't come this late in the season, although Encarnacion might have been within a week or two of this particular point in the season. I can't believe that the Indians think they can go into the season with that great starting pitching staff, but that horrible outfield. As good as the pitching staff is, that's how bad the outfield is, unless they make some changes. And, Bud, I don't expect them to until maybe the trade deadline.
No, I think for a while, Les, you and I discussed this, and I kept saying, well, it's early, it's January, it's, wait, we don't know what they're going to look like in April. I think they made it fairly clear in the last week or two in interviews that Antonetti has done with media that they're not expecting to add anybody right now. And maybe it'll be mid-season when, and we all know that, and you've talked about this, they need to be ahead. They need to be comfortably ahead before they decide that they're going to make a big deal to position themselves for the postseason.
We used to think when they said we'll do it when the time comes, we always thought the time comes when they were close and they needed to get over the top. No, it's putting the hammer down, to quote Austin Carr, when they're ahead by a couple of games.
And the other part of it is that you have Lindor and Ramirez, and those are two special talents. And you would hate to see them, just muddle along for the next couple of years because they're not going to spend, and then suddenly it's the 2020 season comes to an end, and you only have one more year of Frankie Lindor, and he's not going to stay.
I want to personally, on behalf of the staff of More Sports and Les Levine, I just want to commend you on the fact you have a good memory of what people said. In the last couple of things you quoted me, I was right. That doesn't happen very often. 216-575-0403 is the number to call. You, of course, can email us during the show at reallesslevine@gmail.com. Bud Shaw from WKYC.com is with us. Terry Pluto tomorrow night. Dennis Maniloff on Thursday. You can follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/More Sports and Les Levine with new content posted each and every day. We'll come back in a moment. More Sports and Les Levine exclusively on cleveland.com.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program has been recognizing role model students and teachers since 2007. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Supporting Education. There, you can nominate students in kindergarten through 12th grade as academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as the Teacher of the Month. Every school that participates is eligible for the School of the Year. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
Called the Browns at...
Welcome back. More Sports and Les Levine. Let's take a look at birthdays for today. Bill Nelson. Usually he isn't standing up, Bud, when you see him. But he was born in 1941. Bill in advance, an accountant, 1947. Andre Reed, Williams, and Gasol, and Jose Abreu all celebrating birthdays today. And Bill Nelson, you ever see him play?
No.
It is impossible to believe that he could have been a quarterback because his legs, I'm sure in today's science and technology they could have fixed his legs, but it looked like every time he took a step backward, his leg was just going to break off.
That's not good. So was he less mobile than Bernie Kosar?
Yes. Yes. 216-575-0403 is the number. Tim in Canton says, I'm pretty sure Jim Nantz called the Browns at the Bears. Well, that's not a home game.
Yeah, you were talking about a home game.
Yeah.
Right?
Browns at the Bears, November 4th, 2001. The Browns were 4-2 and the Bears 5-1, and it was a late Sunday afternoon game. Could be.
Yeah, I mean, we know that that Nance called the Browns' final game against the Ravens, correct? This year.
Oh, this year.
Yeah, did he not? But that was at Baltimore.
It was at Baltimore. Yeah.
So,
I was trying to see if he came in Cleveland. This is from Paul in Findlay. I see where the Saints are bringing up Bottlegate in a claim against the NFL. I was at that game and got hit in the head by a bottle. Thank goodness it was plastic. What, your head?
They don't pack much of a wallop.
No, that's a Carmen policy.
Carmen tried to tell you that.
Browns had run a quick play to avoid going to replay, but the refs decided to invoke replay anyway, resulting in a decision hurting the Browns. That's why the fans went crazy and threw bottles all over the stadium. After that, they stopped selling beer in bottles. No, that's not why the fans went crazy and threw bottles. They went crazy because there were bottles there.
Well, my understanding is that I'm not sure what he's saying here. The Saints are invoking it because they think the league noticed it did something wrong?
In the Cleveland game, in the Bottlegate game, they were ready to run the play. There was in those days, I don't think they had the flags, right? For challenging.
You know, I don't remember.
But I remember the referee saying that he got buzzed.
Right. From upstairs because it was inside 2 minutes, right?
Yeah. I think that's what the rule was at the time.
I mean, this was not this was just a missed call, and I don't know how you. I mean, I would like to think that you can correct that. But I just don't know how you do it. It's not like it was a penalty, and then the coach gets to say, "Wait a second, I don't think that was a penalty."
Did you know that you couldn't? Did you know that you couldn't challenge a play if there wasn't a foul called?
Well, yeah. I mean, you can't say I think there was holding on that call. I don't understand what you're saying.
Well, I see, when the play happened, I said, well, they'll review that. And then I realized, no, you can't review that.
Yeah. I mean, they need to put in a mechanism that allows, blunders like that to be corrected, whether they're calls or non-calls.
Keep the referee out of it. You don't have to hand him a headset and let him look in. Somebody could, by the time he does that, somebody in New York could have said, hey, it's a penalty.
Yeah, well, the crazy thing to me was this story that 4 of the refs in that game were from Southern California, as if Southern California has some, long-standing, passionate attachment to the Rams and the NFL in general. I mean, those guys reffed a bunch of games this year. I don't think that they made calls based on where they were living. No. I just don't believe that happens. Maybe I'm being naive.
If they've been referees for as long as they haven't had time to root for other teams.
Yeah, I don't think that was the case. Now, were they incompetent? They certainly missed that call.
That's a different story. Let's check out what we've got going for the Facebook question. Facebook question of the day: what position do the Browns need to address in the offseason? So we start with Glenn. He says linebacker and defensive line. Jamie Collins was underwhelming this year, and the Browns need to give Larry Ogunjobi. We know it's a spelling mistake, but that's, when we lift it out, we get what we get. Peter says a run stopper on the defensive line. Andy says special teams, including the kicker. That was the Browns' biggest weakness this past season. I don't know, the kicker was 17 of 20. That's pretty good. Also, they must add to the depth chart in case of injuries to the first team. Kevin says definitely 3 positions: left offensive tackle, a run-stopping linebacker, and a pass-rushing defensive end to bookend with Myles Garrett. And Michael says linebacker, when 2 of your mainstays are 1st and 5th respectively in missed tackles, that's the position of need.
Yeah, I agree with I agree with Michael. I understand what he's saying, but I think a lot of people think that Greg, the big left tackle that came in and kind of settled the position during the season, whose name is now escaping me. I think he played well, but I think that they'll still look to see if they can upgrade themselves at left tackle. But I really think they got gouged so bad in that Ravens game, and I understand that that's an unorthodox offense that the Ravens run. But you're still going to have to deal with it next year. And I thought,
I think they'll be prepared next year.
In general, I thought their defensive line and they were 23rd in sacks, and they weren't very good against the run. And I think that's really where they need to improve this team.
Well, they made a change at the defensive coordinator position. Maybe that'll help. They also have to add some free agents. Let's take a look at who the Browns might lose. Restricted free agents: Rashard Higgins, Buddy Calhoun, Justin Burris, Jermaine Whitehead, and Trayvon Corey. Then we go to the unrestricted, and you've got Tyrod Taylor, Brashad Perriman, Rod Streeter.
Greg Robinson. That's what
Greg Robinson.
Greg Robinson, yep.
E.J. Gaines and Phillip Gaines. No relation. Well, you shouldn't be a defensive back with the name Gaines, should you?
They also had a defensive back named Meander for a little while this year. I thought that's not a great one either. But I think that Perriman and Higgins are guys that they're going to have to. Not that they're the end all of wide receivers, but right. I think they've shown they have a rapport with Mayfield. I think unless they're asking for ridiculous money, then those guys, you bring them back and then you add to the wide receiver core.
I think I want to institute a game one of these days here on this show.
All right.
There was a time, and I can't remember when, that my earpiece held in.
Yeah.
That's a different story for a different day. There was a point where I knew every Brown. If you mentioned the guy's name, I could tell you, oh yeah, he played for the Browns from 64 to 67. Now, I don't know when that stopped, but there's a whole bunch of guys in the last 5 years. If you wrote this guy's name down with somebody else, I would have no clue.
Well, you know where the other time frame comes from, and where that's true, is actually Belichick's time here. They drafted terribly when he was here.
Guys like talking 91 to 95.
Guys like Ed King, Dan Footman, Patrick Rowe. I mean,
Patrick Rowe.
Yeah, Tommy. Well, we know Touchdown Tommy Verdell was a top 5 pick. We know right. Eric Turner, who was a good player.
Knowing Belichick,
Antonio Langham, people will remember.
Knowing Belichick as you know him now, would you think he'd pick he would pick Touchdown Tommy?
No, and that's why I think that he was not. That was his weakness at that point in his career was personnel on the offensive side of the ball especially. But,
right.
but there were 2 or 3 drafts in a row, Les, where they only had 6 picks while he was here. So remember he was bringing in guys like former Giants.
Yeah, exactly.
People will call with those names any day. I know they will. But yeah, I mean, I know people like to think, well, boy, when Belichick left, boy, he could have done everything he did in New England. He could have done here.
No, not
I don't
true.
know. I don't know. I think he learned a lot here. One was learning how to deal with players. He was. I remember,
and there was 5 more years in between.
Yeah, and I remember Michael Dean Perry saying to me one day, you know, you can't get this guy to say hello to you in the morning without him dropping an F-bomb on you, you know. So he's gotten a lot better about that. I think he treats players. He's still tough. He still coaches them hard, but I think his interactions with players has improved a lot.
Northfield Park is your home for live and simulcast racing. You can catch all the action of live harness racing Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, as well as Saturday evenings with the post time at 6 p.m., open at noon every day for simulcast action from the top thoroughbred and harness tracks all around the world. Enjoy the free handicapping contests all weekend long, including the popular Road to the Derby contest. It's free admission, free parking every day at Northfield Park. We'll come back in a moment with Bud Shaw, WKYC.com. More Sports and Les Levine continues exclusively on cleveland.com.
Your basement is damp, dirty, and not somewhere you want to spend time. Let Nature Stone Flooring transform your basement into a true extension of your home. Nature Stone's proprietary hydrostatic ports allow water to simply evaporate, so no mold or mildew. Plus, it has a higher insulation rating than carpet and is warmer than linoleum, vinyl, wood, or tile.
Schedule your free in-home estimate easily online today and get up to 50% off.
Nature Stone is the affordable basement floor solution that beautifies your home. Nature Stone, the only concrete solution.
There are tastes we remember. Every smell brings the happiness of times gone by. Experience this every time you walk into Gallucci's Italian Foods. Whether you need lunch on the go, a catered party, or that perfect blend of wine, meats, and cheeses, Gallucci's has exactly what you're looking for. Straight from Mama's Kitchen for old world traditions or original experiences. From the tastes you remember to new flavors you'll never forget. Gallucci's is a tasty branch of your family tree.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a line. A long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
But it's time for a How Come Quickie. How come Indians outfielders would have reported along with the pitchers and catchers, but they don't really have any?
Ooh, that's mean. That's
the mean Les Levine.
You don't mean that as a shot at Leonis Martin, do you?
Not him personally.
But let's just say the most established outfielder is a guy coming off a life-threatening illness. And I'm not saying that to be snarky. I'm just saying, being honest.
There's nothing funny about that. Yeah. I mean, they have 7 outfielders, we believe, and most of them couldn't. There aren't very many teams that even the top guy, whoever that is, could make one of the other teams in the league, a contending team in the league.
If I read you correctly, Les, you're
yeah.
ready for the return of Lonnie Chisenhall, aren't you?
Not yet, but it's so close right now. So close. 216-575-0403 is the number to call. The Cleveland Browns. When did that news break on the ESPN story?
I think it was last week around this time.
Right? Did we do a show? Did we talk about it? I don't think we did.
I don't think we did. No.
All right. A week later, what are your thoughts about it?
Well, not a lot of it surprised me, and that's not to marginalize the reporting that went into it, because I thought he did a nice job. But some of the stuff I kind of knew that Haslam's fault is listening to people. You know, he just listens to too many people. There was an assistant coach quoted in that story saying, you know, you feel like you have the ear of the owner because he comes and he seeks your opinion. But then 3 days later, you get canned. And you're like, wait, where did that come from? What happened?
I think what he said was that if you're the last one to speak to the owner, you have a chance of getting your thoughts across.
And somebody said to me today, we were talking, we did a podcast at WKYC, Ben Axelrod and I, and somebody asked a question. They said, well, do you think that those days are over? Because obviously Haslam wasn't on the dais. He was sitting down in the crowd. It was a Dorsey production, Kitchens and Dorsey. And I said, yeah, I think so. But the search to me also spoke to Haslam wanting all voices in the room to be heard. Because there's no way John Dorsey comes down to 2 finalists and one is Kevin Stefanski. I just don't believe that.
I don't believe that
I
either.
think that had to come from another part of the organization, and whether it was Dee Podesta or Andrew Barry or whoever. So, they eventually, I think, Dorsey's the one who carried the most weight in that discussion, but it still makes me wonder how involved Haslam was in the actual search. And we know the search committee was a fairly big one.
Right. But the one thing that did concern me from the ESPN column was that there were 4 people on the search committee for when they wound up picking Hugh Jackson. And the vote total was supposedly 4-1 with Haslam being the one for Hugh Jackson and the other 4 for McDermott.
Dissenting but overruling.
Yeah. So that concerns me.
Yeah, and this time we don't know where Haslam would have come down on it. We don't know if he always preferred Kitchens and he wanted to give voice to keep his mind open about Kevin Stefanski or someone else. But
I don't know that anybody had anything with Stefanski.
I mean,
any connection.
Maybe we're reaching here, but he was a guy who played at Ivy League football at Penn. We know Dee Podesta and Barry are Ivy League guys.
That's a stretch.
We assume that maybe he was he's an analytics or at least analytics friendly head coach.
Yeah. Is there a possibility that Dorsey is getting too much power? What we always hear so far is if Dorsey wants it, it's good enough for me, or I'm 100% behind whatever Dorsey wants. So the question is, somewhere along the line, there's going to be something between Haslam, Mrs. Haslam, Mr. Haslam, and Dorsey. We don't know when and where, but it will happen because it always does, not just Cleveland. So are we we as fans putting our total belief in Dorsey to the point where if something happens, then we're back into the woes of the last 20 years?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of why some organizations set up the structure so that, if the head coach leaves, they still have the GM, or if they don't like the job the GM's doing, they still have a coach who's got clout. But I think that Dorsey's biggest issues in Kansas City were he wasn't the most organized guy, supposedly, and there were salary cap things that fell through the cracks.
And he kept wearing that Cleveland Browns sweatshirt.
Yeah, well, that didn't go over in Kansas City either. But I think as long as they play to his strengths, which is personnel, obviously, I think they're in better shape than they were, and I think he's got a chance of, he's wired into the league. And as long as they don't start paying or trading for players and giving up draft picks, right now they're so stocked with 10 more picks this year. 17 and I think 49 might be their top 2. They're just in such a good spot as long as he's a keen judge of talent, which he appears to be. I think they're gonna get good in a hurry.
All right, we mentioned baseball a few minutes ago, and I want to take a look at what Las Vegas thinks about the Indians' chances. They think better of their outfield apparently than I do.
Yeah.
Look at that, Indians and Minnesota at the top 10 games separate the two as far as fan graphs. And Kansas City and Chicago tied with 70 wins, and Detroit at the bottom. Look at the synergy from top to bottom, 93, 69, and 69, and 93. Does that mean anything? Do you think they're just groping for numbers there?
I think they're kind of groping for numbers.
I wonder if you take all 3 divisions and add up everything and you find out that there's like 150 more losses than wins.
Yeah, really.
It's supposed to even out, is it not?
Well, I would also be interested in seeing if somebody like Chicago, gets in and signs Machado or somebody, where that ends up.
How much that changes.
But yeah, listen, I don't want to be too hard on him either. Les, we're talking about a team that won 91 last year. 102 the year before, 94 the year before that.
And by the way, you know, the fans who are upset, you only have to win your division by one game. You don't have to smash them to smithereens.
Yeah, I mean, but clearly when you go down the list of the players that they let go, it
let go this year?
Yeah,
oh, yeah.
As a Indians fan, it would take your breath away. You'd be like, wait a second, what have we done since then? Well, we you know, the Indians added the catcher
from the Mets,
re-signed Oliver Perez. So
yeah.
I mean, they haven't done a whole lot, and that is going to be a tough sell on opening day if they trot that outfield out there.
And by the way, people complain about playing the Central 18, 19 games. Beat up on them so at least you'll get the home field advantage if you do get to the postseason.
I still think that one of the great things that Dick Jacobs ever did was
get that division.
Get them out of the AL East.
He was adamant in the beginning about joining Boston and New York, and somebody said, by the way, you might get to the postseason a little easier. Oh, okay.
Yeah, let's
go.
That's like when we in the media suggested to Al Lerner that the only way to come back in 1999 was to play the Steelers in the first game. And after they lost 43-0, he said, "Good idea, guys. Really, that was a good one."
Who came up with that pronouncement?
I did.
Did you really?
Yeah, I wrote something saying, "Well, you know, listen, the people of Pittsburgh commiserated with Browns fans when they lost the team, and what a way to come back! You play the Steelers." And Al Lerner poked his head into the media room the next day, and he was like, Good idea. Real good idea.
Excellent, excellent. You can follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/More Sports and Les Levine, with new content posted each and every day. If you'd like to get in on the phones, you can do that right now, 216-575-0403. I'm Les Levine, that's Bud Shaw. More Sports and Les Levine continues exclusively on cleveland.com.
It takes attention to detail. With your local Bryant dealer, you're getting more than just a technician. You're getting someone who pays attention to your needs and the little things that make a big difference. It takes a dealer you can rely on. And to keep your family warm this winter,
here, let me show you how this works.
It takes Bryant.
Bryant. Whatever it takes.
It takes Smiley One Heating and Cooling to bring the heat when things get chilly. Find us at 440-449-HEAT.
Let's take a look at this date in sports history. January 29th, 1980, Norm Nixon played a then-record 64 minutes as the Lakers lost to the Cavaliers in 4 overtimes. Joe Tate always said that was his favorite regular season game in all the years he played.
Imagine if Norm Nixon was making $50,000 every 8 minutes on the court. I'll let you do the math on that.
Yeah, I'll do the math. 216-575-0403 is the number to call. Cleveland Bill writes in, Bud. The top two, come on, Les and Bud. The top two on any Cleveland sports list would be Frank Lane and Art Modell. Les might be old enough to remember what Lane did in April of 1960. All I remember, and I remember what Modell did in November of 95. Yeah, 1960, April, he decided to trade Rocky Colavito, the fan favorite, for Harvey Keene. How did that go? However, I'll make a case for it. You, of course, tell me what happened with Art Modell in 95. You remember anything?
I think, yes. He had no choice.
He had no choice, exactly. Let's forget for a minute that Rocky Colavito might have been the most popular Indian for over that period of time that he played.
Yeah.
I think before that, Lou Boudreau probably was, and then Rocky Colavito would probably be next in line. in the 50s. So Colavito was a home run champ, and Harvey Keene was the batting leader. Now, in the late 50s, early 60s, forget the personalities and the franchises involved, you could make an argument for the batting champ for the home run hitter, couldn't you? Home run leader?
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, that's what Lane did. He was wrong, but that's what he did. Harvey Keene, I think, hit 301 that year. Rocky hit 42 homers. How'd that go?
Yeah, bad call. Would you agree? Would you agree with this email then that Lane is at the top of that?
Yes,
that list
I mean
too?
anybody.
Okay.
My
yeah, I'm sorry, I
generation.
completely blanked on Modell. Obviously, he would. I did. I just when I was thinking of players and not owners. But,
oh, you blanked when you decided who's in the hated
who's on
list.
that list? Yeah, he clearly would be on that list.
Would Larry Drew be on the list?
No, Larry Drew's a nice guy.
All right. Well, Larry Drew would
terrible spot.
Terrible spot, correct. Somebody quoted him saying he's had enough. He doesn't want to ever coach again. He's going to go into some other business.
Well, he certainly wasn't in a rush to take the job this year, remember?
No, he really wasn't.
He had to be kind of
He was the voice of the
that.
team,
yeah.
but he talked about Kevin Love and his possible return.
This is part of his rehab, getting back out on the floor, moving around, going 5-0. There's no contact. We still want to get him involved with some contact to see how he does with that, and then see how he is the following day. But right now, he's a step in the right direction. But no, he won't play. He won't play tomorrow. No chances are he won't play this weekend.
Just to be clear, I think you only have 2 games this week, right?
Yeah, we play and Saturday. Yeah.
You have 3 days off, but you're still saying Saturday?
We have 3 days off. We'll take one of those days off, and then we'll practice. We'll practice 2 days prior to the game, and we'll see how he does with contact.
So Thursday will be contact?
Thursday there will be contact. Mm-hmm. Yep.
But you don't think that he'll play Saturday?
I don't anticipate it. Yeah.
All right, help me out here.
Yes.
They're waiting to get contact for Kevin Love. Have you seen this team play?
I have.
Is there any defensively? Is there any contact ever? Can't you just send Kevin out and say, "Play your 8 minutes, get your $50,000, and then come down, come sit down"?
Yeah, they're just in such a bad spot. I mean, what do you do?
Well, they should have made up their mind.
I never understood the building around Kevin Love. Not that I don't think he's a fine player. I just think he's a chronically injured guy.
He's a fine player when he's got LeBron James and Kyrie Irving. So now that we brought that up, do you think he would also join Kyrie and LeBron in California?
He is from there, isn't he?
He is from there.
Yeah.
Went to UCLA.
Yeah. I mean, maybe that's why he was at dinner with LeBron, too. Right?
Oh, you don't think they talked about it when Kyrie calls and
I think
LeBron picks it up and says, "Look who I got here on line 2."
Yeah, look who I got here. Yeah, really? Well, I'm going to be calling you, too, in another couple weeks.
The more that story develops, and it will develop, a story like that does not stop, right? It'll be out there for a while. That would be one of the most unbelievable things, not just in Cleveland sports history, but sports history itself.
Well, if you've noticed how the Warriors have been playing lately, and the fact that they've now have DeMarcus Cousins,
right?
We
call him Boogie.
They're back to form, and it's hard to imagine anybody in the West, unless it's a team that has LeBron James and Anthony Davis, even competing with those guys right now. So I don't know. I mean, you asked me a question off air about is LeBron going to come back as the same guy who has dominated the league? And
you mean when the injury is
over? Yeah, and it might be a fair question. I mean, it wasn't a season-ending kind of injury that he's trying to come back from, but
it's almost 20 games.
But
now.
We've always talked about the mileage that he has on him. From what is it, 16 seasons now, and the international play and everything. So we're not used to seeing him get injured like this and be out this long. And unless that team, I know that team has overachieved with him this year, but unless that team really makes a big deal at the break, and they're going to have to give up a lot to get Anthony Davis, I don't see where they're going to compete. And then it's a matter of waiting for the Warriors to break up, and that's everybody's hope in the West.
Well, and the Warriors also not just breaking up, going to other teams, but you talk about extra mileage. That going to as many finals as they've gone to, not only is it high mileage, it's hard miles.
Yeah. I mean, eight times in a row we're talking.
Yeah, you're going into mid-June.
Yeah. I mean, people are talking about the conversation at the Super Bowl being, you know, who's the greatest of all time, Tom Brady or LeBron James. Those kind of discussions don't do a lot for me because I just think they're so hard to compare sports. But 8 straight AFC championship games and 8 straight NBA finals is something that we'll probably never see again in our lifetime.
When people argue Michael Jordan and LeBron James, the championships always come into play. If you're a Michael Jordan fan, for sure you do. I've always felt, and I'm a homer, I admit it, that I don't know how you could be a better running back than Jim Brown, but he only won 1 title while he was here. Otto Graham went to 10. How about that? Otto Graham, although the first 4 years was the All-American Conference, but he goes to 10 championship games in a row. I don't care who you're playing. That's pretty good.
Yeah. I think that it's hard to compare, like in football, it would be hard for me to judge a running back as lacking if he didn't win titles. I mean, it's just, I think quarterbacks are a little more fair game, but even then, it's not comparable to an NBA player that has the ball in their hands every time they want it.
You know, it's won titles since 1923? Sokolowski's University.
I wondered where you were going with that.
That's where I'm going. I'm going there Thursday, in fact, to keep my Joe DiMaggio type record straight on Thursday afternoons. Located in Tremont, 5 minutes out of downtown Cleveland, come across the bridge, the Abbey Avenue exit. That's where you find the best place in town to go for lunch. Mike and Bernie Sokolowski's University Inn. Plenty of free parking, plenty of great food. And they won the James Beard Foundation Award 3 years ago, making them one of the 5 top restaurants in the country. No other restaurant in Cleveland has won that award. It is a prestigious award and very well deserved by great people. And if they have an award for great people, that's the Sokolowskis, let alone the fact they've got one of the best restaurants anywhere. We'll come back in a moment with Bud Shaw, exclusively on cleveland.com.
Concrete in your garage is uneven, cracked, pitted, and just plain ugly. Transform your garage into a welcoming entryway with Nature Stone flooring. Reduce tracked-in dirt, eliminate puddling and salt damage. Plus, Nature Stone corrects uneven concrete so you don't have to worry about tripping or slipping.
Call or go to naturestone.com to schedule your free in-home estimate today and get up to 50% off.
Nature Stone is the affordable garage floor solution that beautifies your home. Nature Stone, the only concrete solution.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program has been recognizing role model students and teachers since 2007. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Supporting Education. There, you can nominate students in kindergarten through 12th grade as academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as the Teacher of the Month. Every school that participates is eligible for the School of the Year. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
Let's check out this date in Les Levine history, January 29, 1959. He got his teacher upset when she asked how many months have 28 days, and he answered, all of them.
You weren't wrong.
What can she do to me? She can't make... I had ample proof if she wanted me to stand in the corner or go in the what do we call those rooms? Not the clothes hangers. The
cloakroom?
The cloakroom. We never wore cloaks.
Yeah, you know, unless you were at Hogwarts. Yeah, I mean, you were not wrong on that. I would have stuck with that.
Excuse me, Mrs. whatever your name is. My friend Bud would like to stick up to me. He's 10 years younger than me, but he still would like to vote in that. 216-575-0403 is the number to call. Terry Pluto tomorrow night, and Dennis Maniloff, that'll be on Thursday. What the biggest story in Cleveland sports now as we await spring training, as we await the draft, and by the way, we don't have to do mock drafts on this show.
Aren't you happy?
I am very happy with that alone. And, of course, the Cavaliers. Number one, does anybody care about the Cavaliers in any way, shape, or form? Because I've had so many people say they've turned the game on, halftime they're not even in the game, sayonara.
Yeah, I mean, maybe when Kevin Love comes back, because I still think he's a popular player here, and people will want to see whether they can get their legs under them a little bit. But other than that, I don't think so. No. And is there any, other than whatever Dorsey wants is okay with me, is there any intrigue in the draft? No, I think the intrigue is just like what side of the ball do they go to, you know, and that's not enough to carry months of draft. No, there's no names that anybody knows really. Yeah. No, I don't. You know, this is what happens, I think, when you finally get the quarterback. You know that everything settles down. Yeah, we had a countdown to the draft. You don't need a countdown anymore. Yeah, I mean, it just feels like. You know, this big lull now because everyone's waiting and waiting and waiting. Now, I think the interesting part comes that this organization is going to face expectations for the first time in a long time. What's wrong with that? No, I just think it's going to be interesting to see how they handle it. Well, we had this assumption that Freddie Kitchens is going to walk in and he's going to pick up right where he left off, and Mayfield's going to be just as good in year 2 or better than he was in year 1, and we really don't know. I mean, they're still very young. And we think they've got a good solid coaching staff, but we don't know. These guys didn't know each other. They're being thrown in the same room. Yeah. Introduce yourself, boys, and let's move on. Northfield Park is your home for live and simulcast racing. You can catch the excitement of live harness racing Monday through Wednesday and Saturday evenings, post time 6 p.m. Open early every day at noon for simulcast action from live and from the harness tracks all over the world. Free admission, free parking every day at Northfield Park. Bud and I return one more time exclusively on cleveland.com.
When my dad started Nature Stone, he created a solution for age-old concrete problems: unevenness, cracking, pitting, and more. Nature Stone solves all of these problems in garages, basements, and outdoor spaces. Nature Stone is beautiful, environmentally friendly, and affordable. Plus, Nature Stone is backed by Russell's Promise, our true unconditional warranty.
Call or go to naturestone.com to schedule your free in-home estimate today and get up to 50% off.
Nature Stone, the only concrete solution.
There are tastes we remember. Every smell brings the happiness of times gone by. Experience this every time you walk into Gallucci's Italian Foods. Whether you need lunch on the go, a catered party, or that perfect blend of wine, meats, and cheeses, Gallucci's has exactly what you're looking for. Straight from Mama's Kitchen for old world traditions or original experiences. From the tastes you remember to new flavors you'll never forget, Gallucci's is a tasty branch of your family tree.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just a mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Tomorrow night, Terry Pluto of the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com will join us, and Thursday night it'll be Dennis Maniloff. You see us live Monday through Friday from 6 until 7, and then you can archive it all day long, go back to any previous episode. You can do that by following us on cleveland.com. And you can follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/More Sports and Les Levine. You get your name and your picture if you've got it on Facebook, and whatever comment you have, right here on facebook.com/More Sports and Les Levine. Let's go to Rocky River. We'll say hi to Mike. Mike, good evening. Go ahead.
All right. Hi, guys. Well, you're talking about the greatest of all time, Brady and LeBron and stuff. Got me thinking, do you even think the LeBron is even the greatest Cleveland athlete of all time? Because I can make a case for Jim Brown, like you were saying, autogram. Or even one day I got an autograph from Bob Feller at a gas station, and Bob Feller might be on that list too.
Hey, well, you hold on to that autograph. It might be the only one in town.
It was amazing. It was. I was bought one for 15. I went back for a second one. He said, "Well, 2 is 40."
Yeah.
And it's never been the same.
All right, now the autogram thing is interesting to me because the difference between now, here you can do the math now. Bernie Kosar from the 90s or the 80s till now is what, 30 years?
Yeah.
Something like that, or is it 40? Yeah. Whatever. Yet Otto Graham seems to be only about 10 years off of people's knowledge of him. Everybody, even if they weren't born or weren't Browns fans when Bernie was here, they all know of the legend of Bernie Kosar. And I'm not sure that 10 years before that you would have said that about Otto Graham, who may have been the greatest of all time.
Yeah, yeah. And well, the other thing, too, I think is what you both pointed out, too, is in basketball, I mean, you can get the ball on every play. And where in football or other sports, you're much more limited in the amount of touches that you have and opportunities to do things. And so I think that has kind of a bearing on things too, because I think that I think what Graham was doing was just, I think, is unprecedented. But
yeah, and it's only 3 years. If he was 3 years younger and he came along when the Browns were in the NFL, I mean, you could argue how they would have made that happen because he was with the Browns of the AAFC. But if you could, if you wipe out those 3 years in the other league, he has to be considered the greatest of all time.
Yeah, I think you just gave Les a good idea for a poll, or maybe cleveland.com.
Yeah, the only one thing I'd add too is this begs the one more question: is it Belichick or is it Brady?
You're too late.
That's a really good question. I mean,
we solved that earlier.
What was Belichick's line all the time? I can only go by what I see.
And all I do is see him on the dais accepting the trophy.
The only year that Brady got hurt and was gone, they went 11-5, I believe, with Matt Castle. Yeah. So didn't win a championship, obviously, but.
Well, the question is, if Brady retired after Sunday, which I don't expect him to do, are we saying that Brian Hoyer is your quarterback of the future?
No, I think they would probably go get another guy that they think has a higher ceiling than that. But it is a great question. I just know that.
I also think about think about a guy like John Elway or Peyton Manning, different coaches, different teams, and the success the teams had when they were there versus the coaching changes and stuff. So it's just something to consider.
Yeah. All right, Mike. Thanks. Good to talk to you.
Okay.
All right, that'll do it for us. Anything you want to add to the proceedings?
No, I thought that was an interesting call. Especially in 2019, the quarterback is now you can't touch the quarterback.
Right.
You get trouble for hitting him on the shoulder when
you get trouble for almost hitting him.
Almost anything, yeah. So they have a lot more leeway. Receivers aren't getting blocked. So maybe quarterback is become more important than head coach. Yeah. All right, great quarterbacks.
That'll do it for us. Bud Shaw, of course, at WKYC.com. You can follow him there. You can follow Terry Pluto tomorrow night and Dennis Maniloff on Thursday. More Sports and Les Levine exclusively on cleveland.com. Of all the shows I've ever done, this was the most recent.